Mark Davis. I'd like you to focus a little bit on the non-economic factors embedded in the word undermined, such as the opioid crisis, the alienation felt by American workers that had a major impact on the last election, the sense of alienation from the political system, a loss of sense of power, etc.
I guess I'd say Jared said, there's no problem. There's no factor that explains 15% of a problem. Our argument is that this is minus 15% of the problem. And in fact, I think it's by placing too much weight on globalization, we've made these other problems worse. Because if you think our problem is, that our trade deficit is caused by China, it's not caused by China, it's caused by mistakes that we make here in the United States. And if you get distracted and think that steel tariffs are a way to help American manufacturing as opposed to investing in training, investing in American industry, I think a lot of the protectionist debate has distracted us from the real problems, the real solutions, and made these issues worse.
Can I come back to you with that question? I think I heard in that question whether you can draw a nearly straight line between globalization policy and, for example, the opioid crisis. Can you be that specific?
I was going to say, I think that there's a tremendous sense of alienation and people feeling that, in fact, the economy doesn't work for them, that, in fact, their future prospects don't look very good, and that where they live is, in fact, there's very little optimism. But I think a lot of that goes to the broader issues we're talking about around what is it that's happened to incomes, the ability to have a living, at least an ability to live, an ability to send your kids to school. And a lot of that has its roots in this income stagnation that we're talking about. And the big drivers for that, let's not forget, a big part of the income stagnation, we had just had a massive recession and a financial crisis, which explains a lot of it. Then we've got these other structural things like labor share of income that are starting to change the way the economy works. And then we've also got one of the things about automation, by the way, which I spend a lot of time on. If you look at the occupations that are growing versus ones that are declining, many of the ones that are growing look a lot like care work. And a lot of them don't have great wage structures. So if you look at just this income question, some of it is coming from the occupational skill shifts that are occurring that's creating this sense of anxiety and so forth. And part of it has also been a bit of a gendered problem because, in fact, many of the occupations that have declined have mostly been very male-dominated. And so you've got these societies of people who are no longer earning the kinds of incomes that they had. So we have to look at these wider issues. And to simply point it at globalization, just because it happened around the same time, I think is missing.
I want to let Thea respond. The floor is yours.
I think your question is really important about the non-economic ways in which globalization has undermined American workers. And if you think about things like dignity and voice and power, and you think about, put yourself in the shoes of an American worker who's been making a product, who's making an excellent product, who is incredibly productive, who is hardworking, and yet his company is going to move his job overseas or her job overseas because there are workers somewhere else who don't have basic human rights. They don't have the right to unionize. They maybe aren't protected by their government, or maybe even that the company is going to dump the toxic waste straight into the river. And because the rules that we put in place in globalization aren't doing a good job of protecting us from that kind of undermining and arbitrage, then that is an unfair reason to lose your job. So we think about the level playing field.